Discover how a billionaire's surprising need for love transformed a rejected bride's life forever. Emily Parker stood frozen in the center of the church, vibrant flowers wilting around her. The whispers buzzed like angry bees, tearing her insides apart. She could see nothing but the empty altar where her fiancé, Jonathan, should have stood, his absence piercing her heart deeper than any knife. How could this be happening? The fairy tale wedding she'd envisioned crumbled in an instant, leaving her exposed in a sea of judgmental eyes. Once a dreamer, she now felt like a ghost haunting her own life, a professional teacher reduced to a mere lesson in betrayal. After that day, the world pressed down on Emily like a weight she didn't ask for. Her students were still bright, their laughter a balm she desperately sought to hold on to, but it was hard to drown out the embarrassment mingled with her sense of loss. Every time she bent to help a child tie their shoelaces or read a story, flashes of Jonathan's smile haunted her. Had he ever really loved her, or was she just a trophy to carry alongside his wealth? Desperation festered in her squeezed heart, pushing her to embrace her role as a teacher even more fiercely. If I can't find love, she thought, then maybe I can fill my life with these kids. Their innocence reassured her, but the truth lay heavy. Their laughter felt like a delicate mask over her own brokenness. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But as Emily buried herself in work, unease festered beneath the surface. Teaching filled her days, yet at night, her dreams morphed into night terrors, filled with loud echoes of the vows she never got to say. Will I ever feel whole again? She pondered, battling waves of despair. The kids were not enough. Every joyful moment in her classroom pushed the reality of her heartbreak further away, only to come crashing back when the bell rang. Every button-up shirt and every bouquet reminded her of Jonathan, and the thought of loving someone again felt like a joke. How could anyone love a failure? Then came Jack Miller, a billionaire from across the country with his own demons, showing up in her quiet town with an initiative that promised change. She felt a spark of hope for the charity work he proposed, but was instantly met with hesitation. A wealthy man here to play Robin Hood or genuinely connect? Her instincts screamed that people were often not what they seemed. Every puzzled glance from her friends and co-workers fueled her fear that Jack was just another man, looking for a way to rid himself of guilt. But as they began collaborating, revealing layers of his personality, she saw in him the shadows that matched her own. He was a man haunted by his upbringing, seeking purpose beyond wealth. Yet she felt the looming question. Was their bond real, or merely a fragile escape from their respective realities? As doubt crept in, the painful memories of her past resurfaced, thickening the air between them. Emily wondered if committing herself to anything, even friendship, would lead her to more heartache. Tension hung heavy in the air as their connection deepened, but she felt poised on the edge of a terrifying cliff, where acceptance turned to rejection far too easily. Every shared moment sparked doubt, a question whispered in her heart. What if it ends like last time? Just when she thought she had taken a step toward healing, an unexpected message arrived, shattering her frail resolve and leaving her at a crossroads of fear and vulnerability. Would this chance at love turn into another loss, leaving her hollow again? In a world fraught with judgment, could she dare to believe in love once more, or would fear keep her bound to her broken past? The answer hung perilously in the balance, waiting for her to finally make a choice. Emily spent the next few days in a haze, the unexpected message sitting heavily in her mind like a stone. It was a simple text from Jonathan, asking if they could talk. The words were drenched in contrition, but all she felt was the sharp prick of anger intermingled with a dash of nostalgia. Why now? Why after everything? Gripping her phone, memories spiraled through her thoughts, times filled with laughter, late-night talks, and promises that turned to ash. Even as she tried to distract herself at school, the echoes of her past clawed at her resolve, demanding to be acknowledged. Each time a child laughed or raised a hand with a question, it was as though she could feel a part of her spirit responding, full of hope and energy. Yet when night fell and the classroom emptied, the darkness swelled with whispers of self-doubt. Had she merely been naive, thinking her life could change for the better? Jack had become her unexpected solace during this turbulent time. His sincerity in the charity work they were doing together showed her glimpses of genuine kindness that felt foreign yet refreshing. They often shared moments, small conversations filled with purpose and laughter, propelling her toward healing. But would that foundation shatter if she let Jonathan back in, like fragile glass under the weight of betrayal? One afternoon, as she sat at her desk, grading papers with Jack's laughter resonating in the background, she made a choice. Picking up her phone, she typed out a response to Jonathan. "We can talk, but I'm not interested in revisiting the past." The moment she hit send, a wave of relief cascaded over her. She had drawn a line, claiming her autonomy amid the ruins of old dreams. The next morning, Emily's classroom felt different. She felt stronger, as though invisible chains had loosened. With renewed energy, she engaged her students in an art project that showcased their dreams for the future. In every paint splash and vibrant color, her own dreams began scattering back to her, the ones she had locked away when Jonathan's presence absorbed every ounce of hope. As the kids constructed their imaginative landscapes, Emily glimpsed a bright future, a future not reliant on the validation of love or success, but built on self-acceptance and nurturing budding aspirations. Her heart swelled as she watched them, unconcerned with their imperfections, unscathed by society's judgment. Yet, even as joy spread within her, the shadows of uncertainty lurked. She could feel Jack's eyes on her, and every glance registered different emotions: curiosity, concern, and something deeper. The psychic scars of her past blended with the burgeoning realization she was learning to advocate for herself, to regard her feelings with weight rather than shame. But would she also learn to embrace something new with Jack? Or would Jonathan's possible return throw her back into turmoil? Just as she began to trust in the possibilities, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a news alert. Jack's foundation was under scrutiny. She stared at the headline, a knot tightening in her gut. Was this the beginning of a public fallout? Had she been too quick to make judgments about him? As the tension curled around her, Emily faced a pivotal moment. Would she stand by Jack and confront the storm together, or withdraw into the safety of her past fears? The choice loomed, carrying the weight of consequences she couldn't yet fathom. Emily stared at her phone, her heart pounding with the weight of the moment. The image of the news alert flickered before her like a warning signal. Jack's foundation, the initiative he had poured his heart into, was suddenly under fire for allegations she couldn't understand. The foundations she'd admired for their authenticity and impact were now in jeopardy. It felt like the ground was shifting beneath her. Her mind raced. Jack had exuded an air of unwavering passion when they discussed their charitable work. That conviction had drawn her to him, a lifeline amidst her chaos. But would she appear naive to trust him completely now? The nagging doubts scuttled around in her mind like restless shadows. She couldn't let fear drive her instincts anymore. With a deep breath, Emily set her phone down, forcing herself to focus. Engaging her students in the art project reminded her why she initially fell in love with teaching, the pure, unfiltered joy of igniting creativity. As they painted, she shared snippets of her own dreams, motivations bubbling to the surface. With each word, she felt conviction bloom within her. Yet a question loomed. Could she confront Jack now? The urgency of the alert churned inside her. What if his responses only precipitated more complications? Walking to the front of the classroom, she found herself surveying the children, painting with wild strokes. The vivid colors paralleled the messiness of her own life, bright aspirations interrupted by dissonance and doubt. She realized she needed to reflect that same energy if she were to clarify her thoughts about Jack. That evening, instead of hiding from her emotions, she called up the courage to reach out to him. Within minutes, her phone rang, Jack's name flashing across the screen. She felt a jolt of anticipation fuse with her fear, and she answered. "Hey, Emily, I was hoping you'd call. he said, his voice warm yet weighed down with concern. I saw the article, she replied, striving to maintain a calm demeanor despite the turmoil within. What's going on? His sigh echoed a painful honesty. I didn't think things would escalate like this. Some people are questioning our motives. It's not true, but the best defense feels inadequate when it's being attacked. Her heart faltered. She had grown fond of Jack's earnestness, and hearing him stress over this turmoil felt like a crack in her burgeoning trust. Do you need help? She asked, unsure of her own intentions. Did she mean it professionally, emotionally, or both? Honestly? His voice dropped. I would love that more than anything right now. This foundation means a lot to me, and so do you. As he spoke, everything shifted. It felt strikingly intimate to be in this vulnerable space with him. Here was a person who exhibited both strength and vulnerability, wrestling with the weight of the world, yet reaching out for her support. For the first time in days, the cloud of uncertainty began to lift slightly. She realized that their mutual support could be what was needed to weather this storm. Yet in the back of her mind lingered the message from Jonathan, still unaddressed. The risky invitation he extended, the unresolved emotions, threatened to gnaw at her sanctuary of newfound courage. I'll help in any way I can, she said. She felt emboldened by her decision. But your foundation can't carry the weight of this on its own. People need to understand the heart behind your mission. The tension had offered clarity. She was ready to fight for what mattered to her, for Jack and for herself. Still, the specter of Jonathan loomed large. Would engaging with Jack push her into the arms of yesterday's entanglements? As she hung up, she felt electrified but apprehensive. Emily stared out of her bedroom window into the dark twilight, sensing a storm both literal and metaphorical on the horizon. The challenge had become clear. She needed to grapple with Jonathan's past presence while standing firm with Jack. The night began whispering questions into the stillness, igniting the question. Was she truly ready to reclaim her own narrative? Or would the shadows of her past rise to reclaim her once again? Emily woke the next morning with a knot of determination nestled in her chest. The sun filtered gently through her curtains, but the warmth did little to quell the storm brewing inside her. She needed to prepare for a conversation with Jack that demanded not just honesty but also clarity about her own emotions. Her first instinct was to post on social media, amplifying the foundation's good works and attacking the negative commentary with fervor. But as she brewed her morning coffee, she realized that impulsive actions could compromise her integrity. She had to navigate the murky waters more thoughtfully. Instead, she grabbed her notebook and began scribbling down everything that mattered. Jack's heart for the work, her commitment to authenticity, and the fear of being clouded by her past feelings for Jonathan. With each line, she felt a burgeoning sense of purpose. By the time she finished her coffee, a game plan began to crystallize. She decided to meet Jack at his office rather than have a casual coffee. It felt more serious, more grounded in the work they needed to tackle. As she drove through the city streets, she pondered how to balance personal support for him with her need for reassurance about his integrity. When she arrived, anxiety jostled with excitement. Jack greeted her with a warm smile, but within his eyes lay an unmistakable strain. The office felt both familiar and foreign. Papers were strewn about like leaves caught in a whirlwind. It mirrored the chaos that seemed to engulf both their lives. "Thanks for coming," Jack said, pulling out a chair for her. His tone carried the weight of unresolved stress, and she felt a pull toward him, a mix of empathy and burgeoning hope. "I want to be here for you, but we need to talk," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "The allegations, they're damaging your reputation, and by default, also my perception of what's true and what's exaggerated. What can we do to clarify your mission?" Jack leaned back, his expression a blend of gratitude and discomfort. "I didn't see it coming, truthfully. I thought we were making a difference, but there's a certain vulnerability that comes with exposure." Emily's heart softened at his admission. He was right. Vulnerability could indeed expose them to both criticism and deeper connection, but she also needed to address her own turmoil. "And how do I fit into all this?" What do you really need from me? A flicker of something deeper crossed his gaze, perhaps even hope. I need someone who believes in what we're doing, with or without the headlines. I need someone who— Who what? She pressed gently, her breath catching. She was both desperate to hear him express his needs and terrified of the implications. This was his moment, a pivot point for both of them. I need someone who can be honest about what's at stake, who doesn't shy away from the truth. Emily, we're at a crossroads. I don't just want this project to succeed. I want you to be part of this journey with me. Her heart raced. His words ignited something within her. But the weight of Jonathan's invitation still loomed over her thoughts, casting shadows over this newfound connection. This is new for me, Jack. I need time to process if I'm ready for more than just support. Just then, her phone vibrated with a message from Jonathan. The unspoken temptation hurled her mind back into memories she thought she had started to untether. I think we both need to be clear on what we want, she finally said with resolve. And that includes understanding where I stand with Jonathan. I can't let those past roots tangle us now. Jack looked surprised, and she detected a flicker of understanding. Then let's face this together. My foundation, your truths, and your history. We can't move forward unless we're willing to face our past. Emily nodded, her determination solidifying further. She had to confront Jonathan, not just for herself, but for this emerging bond with Jack. This felt like her opportunity for growth, to reclaim not just her narrative, but also to forge a new path that aligned with her values. As they delved deeper into planning strategies for the foundation, Emily felt the excitement mounting. The choices ahead promised to be transformative, but they also hinted at turmoil. She could feel the wind shifting. Would facing Jonathan strengthen her commitment to Jack or create a rift between them? Giving herself a moment to breathe, she realized that within conflict lay the potential for clarity. Perhaps a clarifying storm that would set the course across an uncharted sea. What would Jonathan say when she confronted him? Would she find strength or falter under the weight of their shared history? Emily spent the rest of the day in a thoughtful haze, the tension coiling tightly in her chest. Steering her thoughts back to the meeting with Jack, she began to recognize that every moment they spent strategizing was pulling her deeper into his world, a place she longed to inhabit but where uncertainty thrummed beneath the surface like an unseen current. That evening, she spread her notes across the dining table, each scribble representing steps toward addressing not just the foundation's challenges, but also her complicated relationship with both Jack and Jonathan. The action felt invigorating, yet every time her mind wandered to Jonathan, a wave of guilt crashed over her. What was she feeling? Was it nostalgia or unresolved affection? The next day, as the sun crept into her office windows, illuminating her array of notes, she felt a surge of urgency. She needed to initiate contact with Jonathan, to face him, not just for Jack, but for herself. It was as if a dormant part of her threatened to awaken. She had a voice, and it was time it was heard. Writing down an agenda helped ground her, creating a framework. She would detail her feelings, her past, and most importantly, her desire to move forward without the weight of old ties. This was not about rekindling lost love, but about finding closure, creating space for new beginnings. How could she forge a meaningful connection with Jack if shadows from her past kept creeping in? As she drove to Jonathan's office later that week, her hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white with resolve. Every intersection felt like a decision turning point, but she refused to back down. Creating a new narrative required acknowledging the chapters that had come before. Jonathan's office loomed ahead, posh and imposing, the emblem of a life she had once envisioned for herself. A wave of nostalgia threatened to pull her under, but she shook it off as she stepped out of her car. Inside, the atmosphere was perfumed with success and ambition, yet it felt alien. Her heart pounded as she waited for him in the sleek, minimalist conference room. Finally, he appeared, his demeanor as polished as the polished mahogany table he approached. "Emily," he said warmly, though there existed a subtle layer of surprise. "I didn't expect to see you. What's on your mind?" With that question, Emily felt the breath hitch in her chest. Words danced on her tongue, but uncertainty loomed. "I've been thinking a lot about us," she began, her voice wavering just slightly. His gaze sharpened, eyes narrowing as if reading her intent. "Us? I thought we had moved on." "Have we really?" she asked, a challenge buried in her question. I need to know what I mean to you. I need closure, or a real understanding of where we stand. He leaned back, the weight of her words settling in. Closure implies that something is over. Is it really? Reality cracked through the edges of her facade. His presence was comforting, yet she noticed how her heartbeat quickened at the thought of Jack, the sincerity in his eyes, the promise of something new. It was a poignant reminder that her old life, with all its chaos and complexity, was no longer a sanctuary. It is for me, Jonathan. I cannot carry the echoes of our past anymore. Then what about the professional ties? Jonathan pressed, his brow furrowing, maintaining a glimpse of what once was. We can pivot there, you know. No, she asserted firmly. Our partnership can't be held together by the past or the pressures of what we once wanted. I'm moving forward. As she saw the flash of realization hit him, Emily felt herself breath anew, the burden of guilt lifting slightly. She watched Jonathan's expression shift, an acknowledgement of what they had been and what they weren't becoming. Before leaving, she looked him in the eye one last time. I hope you find the love and mission you deserve. Just not with me. With that, Emily stepped back into the light of a potential future, her pulse steadying as she left the imposing structure behind her. She drove home with clarity. Each turn reaffirmed her choice. She had stepped into her power and faced the ghosts of the past head-on. Yet amidst this newfound clarity, a nagging question lingered. Was she truly ready to embrace whatever lay ahead with Jack? Would he accept her unfiltered truth? As she pulled into her driveway, a text notification blinked on her screen. It was from Jack. Can we talk? I need to see you. Emily's heart raced anew, uncertainty swirling as she pondered their next conversation. The journey ahead was paved with hope, but it required a sincerity she wasn't sure she was ready to share fully. What might happen when she revealed everything? Emily's heart pounded as she stared at Jack's message. It was as if the air around her had thickened, weighty with unspooled possibilities that danced chaotically through her mind. Could she really open herself up, lay bare the complexities of her journey, and carve a path toward something genuine? She wrestled with the idea, fear and excitement intertwined in a tight embrace. Composing a response felt paramount, yet the words eluded her. Thoughts tumbled in a storm of anxiety and hope. Jack represented both a new beginning and the daunting challenge of revealing her true self. Would he understand her? Did she even understand herself fully? She took a breath, fingers hovering above her keyboard, and drafted a simple reply. When and where? The response came quickly, igniting a flicker of reassurance. Tonight, at the cafe on Main Street, around 7. By the time she arrived at the cafe, dusk had settled softly around her. The familiar fragrance of roasted coffee blended with the crisp evening air, filling her with a sense of comfort. But as she stepped inside, the walls seemed to close in, coated in expectation. A million what-ifs ricocheted in her mind. Jack was already seated in a corner booth, his eyes scanning the horizon of the cafe, somewhere between anxious anticipation and calm resolve. He looked up, and for a moment, the world around them blurred into a vibrant silence. There was a sincerity in his gaze that momentarily quelled her anxiety. Emily. He smiled, and she felt a warmth spread, easing the tightness in her chest. Jack. She slid into her seat, her heart drumming an uneven rhythm. The ambiance shifted as he leaned forward, the casual noise of the cafe fading into the background. I've been thinking about our last project, he began, voice steady, and how connected I feel to you through this whole process. I didn't realize how much I missed that collaboration. Emily felt a spark within her, a reminder of the synergy they had shared. Yet she hesitated, aware of the deepening stakes now cloaked in professional affection. I enjoyed it too, she admitted, but I also know there's more we need to address. He furrowed his brow, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. What do you mean? How we got here? She replied, her voice firmer than she felt. I've been carrying the weight of my past, and I want to be honest with you before we go any further. Jack's expression softened, the playfulness dissolving into seriousness. I'm here for the honesty, Emily. please. Share what's on your mind." Her breath hitched as she began peeling back the layers she had so carefully guarded. "I recently ended things with Jonathan, and it was a pivotal moment for me. I realized that I'm stepping into my own power, and I want to bring that clarity into whatever we might have." A pause broke the air, each word she spoke pulling her deeper into vulnerability. Jack tilted his head, his expression an amalgamation of curiosity and concern. "So you're saying you want to pursue something, but there's still hesitation?" "Yes. I fear that my past could overshadow whatever potential we could have. I want you to know who I am and what I've been through before we venture into anything deeper." He took a moment, absorbing her openness. "Emily, the past is part of us, but it doesn't define us. What inspires me is your willingness to confront it." Her heart leapt at his response, feeling validated amidst her unease. Jack leaned in closer, urgency lacing his voice. "I want to know you. All of you. This matters to me." Emily's pulse flickered, igniting something fierce within her. She was on the precipice of transformation, ready to dive headfirst into this new connection. Yet even in the glow of understanding, doubt still lingered in the periphery. "Can we really build a future if I'm still haunted by my past?" she questioned softly, her vulnerability on full display. The moment hung heavily until Jack's gaze anchored her in place. "Let's face these challenges together. I believe we can." As they shared words about hopes, dreams, and fears, a sense of intimacy blossomed. But even as they delved deeper, a question remained. Would she allow herself to fully embrace this journey, free from the shackles of her past? Just as the conversation deepened, Jack's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression shifted abruptly. "I have to take this. It's urgent. Can you hold on for a moment?" Emily nodded, but a sense of foreboding crept in with the unease of silence that followed. The intimacy built felt tenuous as she awaited his return, all she had divulged now swirling in her mind like autumn leaves buffeted by a sudden gust. Would their path remain intact through the turbulence of unanticipated challenges? With uncertainty gnawing at her, she braced for whatever awaited them when he returned. As the seconds ticked, Emily felt that their true test was yet to come. Emily's mind raced as she stared at the table, her pulse still quickening in the aftermath of Jack's sudden departure. The cafe buzzed around her, laughter and clinking cups blending into an indistinguishable hum. But all she could focus on was the weight of her own words. Each admission had been an unveiling, a shedding of skin that left her feeling both raw and exposed. As she sipped her lukewarm coffee, its bitterness matched the uncertainty swirling within her. Jack had responded with grace, but how much of the truth could he accept? Even she grappled with its implications. The thrill of honesty had begun to wilt in the face of her self-doubt. What if he returned to a version of her that was not worthy of his affection? A voice in her head echoed Jonathan's critiques, mixing with the echoes of her past failures. Then, like a lighthouse breaking through fog, a realization struck her. She needed to unearth her own strength. She sat a little straighter, feeling the booth's leather cushioning support her back. Courage surged within her. If she wanted to embrace this potential future with Jack, she had to make peace with her past. Not as a shadow to hide from, but as a foundation to build upon. Moments passed and the door swung open, jarring her from her thoughts. Jack stepped back into the warmth. His expression was a blend of concern and determination. "Sorry about that," he said, sliding back into the seat across from her. "It was my brother. He's managing some family business, but I'm here now." There was a shift in the air, an urgency that circled between them. Emily sensed that the time to deepen their connection had arrived. The moment demanded transparency. "Jack, before we move forward, I want to dig into my fears further," she blurted, grappling for clarity even as the words spilled out. "What's holding you back?" Jack leaned forward, his demeanor attentive, the lingering worry of the phone call fading. She studied his face, a canvas of earnestness, before she pressed on. "I feel like I've failed at relationships in the past, and every moment we share carries the risk of repeating those mistakes. What if I can't be the person you deserve?" The confession was bitten off quickly, the weight of it plummeting heavily between them. Jack's response was immediate. "Who says you won't be?" There was a warmth to his tone that wrapped around her heart, but she'd learned long ago that reassurance was a fragile balm. I see you stepping into your authenticity. We all have baggage. It's about how we choose to carry it. His words ignited a fleeting spark of defiance within her. Could it be this simple? Emily took a deep breath, considering the fight her heart demanded. She wanted to intertwine her past with her future, reshaping her narrative from fear into something powerful. Maybe I need to see my past differently. Rather than a burden, perhaps it can be a tool, she murmured, allowing the thought to crystallize, to remind me of what I won't tolerate again. Jack nodded, visibly tracking her thought process. Exactly. Every experience contributes to our growth, and being brave enough to confront them opens doors. Let's not let nostalgia dictate our paths. As he spoke, a flood of resolve washed over Emily. This was her moment, not just with Jack, but with herself. A commitment to growth shimmered like a light at the end of a dim tunnel. No longer would she allow her history to act as a straitjacket. Instead, her past could be a part of her evolving narrative. And what if this is the start of something meaningful? She ventured, her pulse racing at the prospect. I believe it can be, but we have to be willing to communicate, to challenge the uncomfortable truths along the way. Are you ready for that? Jack's gaze held hers, a challenge wrapped within encouragement. More than ready, Emily whispered, a sense of determination rising within her. Just then, a sudden commotion erupted at the cafe entrance, drawing their attention. A group of people flooded in, voices raised in excitement and tension, disrupting the intimate moment they had forged. Emily's heart sank as they approached, feeling the outside world creeping back into this cocoon of honesty she had just begun to build. Let's not lose this moment, Jack urged, leaning closer, his voice a protective whisper even against the rising noise. But as Emily caught sight of one familiar face amidst the crowd, her stomach knotted. Jonathan stood there, his expression unreadable but unmistakably present. As he made his way toward their table, Emily felt the ground shift beneath her. Would the confrontation unravel everything she was just building with Jack? The air thickened with anticipation, igniting a pivotal moment that threatened to fracture this budding connection. How would she stand her ground? How could she possibly face the specter of her past, standing so close to the future she craved? Emily's heart pounded in her chest, each beat drumming a reminder of her resolve. Just moments ago she had begun to redefine her path, but now, with Jonathan heading their way, uncertainty gripped her like a vice. The laughter and chatter from the cafe faded into an indistinct blur, and all she could focus on was the face of the man who had left her feeling inadequate. As Jonathan closed the distance, the smirk he wore felt like a disruption, casting a shadow over the light that had radiated from her conversation with Jack. "Emily," he called out, his voice dripping with a mix of condescension and familiarity. "Jonathan," she replied, her own voice steadier than she felt. Holding Jack's gaze gave her strength. He was a reminder that she was allowed to define herself outside of her past. "Fancy seeing you here," he said, leaning against the edge of their table. "Who is this?" His eyes flicked dismissively over Jack, evaluating him like some lowly competitor. Jack's composure didn't waver. "I'm Jack, and you are?" His demeanor was unyielding, a silent challenge to Jonathan's condescension. "I'm someone who knows Emily better than anyone," Jonathan retorted, his tone now laced with an undercurrent of menace. "She and I have an unfinished business." Emily's breath caught in her throat, but beneath that initial panic, a flicker of defiance ignited. She had resisted Jonathan's influence long enough. This was her chance to confront the hold he had over her. "What we had was a lesson, Jonathan," she interjected, surprising even herself with the force of her words. "Not a bind. I've learned to stand on my own." For a brief moment, Jonathan's expression shifted, surprise mingling with anger. "Is that so? You think you can just walk away and make your own rules now? You were never good enough to play in the big leagues." Jack shifted in his seat, the tension between the men palpable. Emily's heart raced, but she knew she had to push further, not just to silence Jonathan but to assert her own voice. "I'm better than I was with you. I'm not the same naive person who accepted your words as truth. Each misstep made me stronger." Jonathan opened his mouth to reply, But the determination in Emily's eyes seemed to silence him momentarily. This was her moment, and with that recognition came a clarity she hadn't fully grasped until now. She was fighting not just for Jack's attention, but for herself, her agency. The cafe around them began to fade back into focus, clinking cups and occasional laughter providing a stark contrast to the high stakes of her confrontation. She felt the walls of her past beginning to crumble. Jack's hand found hers, a grounding force amid the chaos. "Emily, let's keep moving forward," he said softly. There was no doubt in his voice, only encouragement that bolstered her courage. And then it clicked. Emily could redefine not just how she saw herself, but how she allowed others to see her. She turned her gaze back to Jonathan, who looked increasingly frustrated. "You'll see me again, but not as the version of me you once knew. I've learned from you, not just through your words, but through every painful moment. And from now on, I choose what that means." "Don't get cocky," Jonathan retorted, but there was an edge of uncertainty now, as if he realized he'd lost the upper hand. As he stepped back, the space between them widened, exposing the gulf created by Emily's evolution. She could hardly believe how liberating it felt to stand firmly in her own skin. Turning her focus back to Jack, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. "Yes," she affirmed, her voice steady and unwavering. "I'm ready for whatever this is between us to grow, no matter what comes." Jack smiled, a look of admiration dancing in his eyes, and she realized the sincerity of their connection went beyond superficial attraction. It was built on mutual respect for their resilience. But just as hope surged within her, Jonathan's voice cut through the clarity like a knife. "Emily, I will always be a part of your life until you acknowledge the truth," he warned, his tone ominous. Emily felt the weight of his threat, but it galvanized her. Jonathan's presence was a reminder of her journey, a marker of how far she had come. With newfound determination, she locked eyes with Jack. Maybe facing her past wouldn't be a one-time confrontation, but an ongoing journey. But with each defiance, Emily could forge a stronger future. As Jack reached for her hand, Emily sensed that this battle was just a prelude to even greater ones ahead. Would she learn to navigate the complexities of her past while building a connection worthy of her newfound strength? The question loomed large in her mind, an unwritten chapter yet to be defined. Emily stepped away from the cafe, her heart still racing from the confrontation with Jonathan. She hadn't just pushed him back, she had pushed herself forward into unknown territory. The air felt different, charged with a sense of possibility that she hadn't fully realized before. With Jack by her side, she felt a newfound resolve shimmering just beneath the surface. "I can't keep living under the shadow of him," she said, her voice barely loud enough to carry. "It's like every step I take, he's still there, looming over me." Jack's grip on her hand tightened reassuringly. "He's part of your past, but you have the strength to shape your present and future. You don't need to be defined by who he thinks you are," Jack said, his gaze unwavering. His belief in her made her feel like she was slowly shedding layers of a self that had long felt cumbersome and limiting. "I know that," she replied, the words tasting both foreign and sweet on her tongue. "It's just, in the moment, it's so easy to slip back into old beliefs." Jack nodded, understanding etched into his features. "Every time he tries to undermine you, remind yourself of what you've accomplished, that you're stronger. This isn't just about him, it's about claiming your life." As they walked, the city bustled around them, people chatting, cars honking, life moving in all directions. And for the first time in a long time, Emily felt like she could steer her own course, navigating through it all on her own terms. "I want to do more than just exist," she admitted, conflict rising in her chest. "I want to figure out who I am without the weight of my mistakes." Jack stopped and faced her, a flicker of intensity in his eyes. "Then let's figure that out together. Don't just run away from Jonathan. Run towards the person you want to be." His words ignited something inside her, a spark of courage that surged through her veins. She began to envision practical steps, small goals that would empower her further. "I've always dreamed of pursuing my art," she murmured, a hint of hesitation still lingering. "But every time I think about showing it to anyone, my self-doubt creeps in. Jonathan's voice echoes in my head. What if you started with just one piece? Jack proposed. Find a small gallery or even a local cafe and showcase it. You'd be surprised at how liberating it could be. A small smile tugged at the corners of her lips, but her heart raced with uncertainty. What if no one likes it? What if... Jack stepped closer, leaning in as if to share a secret. What if it changes everything? What if sharing your work opens doors you never knew existed? The world can only benefit from your perspective, Emily. She inhaled deeply, his conviction sparking her own sense of ambition. Perhaps the first step in her journey was not merely distancing herself from Jonathan, but embracing a path that led to her authenticity. "I'll think about it," she promised, each word an act of defiance against the self-doubt that had both haunted and defined her. As the sky shifted from azure to twilight hues, Emily contemplated the possibility of collaborating with artists she admired, the prospects blooming like wildflowers in her mind. Each decision felt powerful, a testament to her commitment to flourish, not just fight. Yet, as they turned the corner back toward the cafe, she felt a shiver of apprehension. The nagging possibility that Jonathan's shadow would loom larger than she could predict lingered, a reminder that her confrontation with him might not be over. "Let's go back tomorrow," Jack suggested, sensing her hesitance. "You don't have to do it alone." "No," she replied with newfound firmness. "I think it's time to face him again. I need to remind myself that I'm not the same person I was when he had that power over me." The resolve settled in her bones, but the uncertainty loomed. What would Jonathan's next move be? Would he retaliate in a way that threatened her journey? As the streetlights flickered on, Emily felt the tug of her past intermingling with the bright possibilities of her future. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but one question loomed larger than the rest. How far was she willing to go to reclaim her narrative, and what would that truly mean when she confronted Jonathan once more? The next morning, Emily awoke with a steely resolve nestled deep within her chest. Last night's conversation with Jack had ignited something dormant, a commitment to reclaim her narrative not only for herself, but also for the budding relationship she shared with him. She had faced her past in a way she had never imagined, but now she had to confront it again, head-on, without hesitation. As she prepared for her day, she drafted a mental strategy to approach Jonathan. What would she say? How could she convey that his presence in her life had shifted from a point of affection to an example of what she would no longer tolerate? In the quiet of her morning routine, immense gratitude swelled in her heart, mixing with a fierce determination. This was her moment to cut the strings holding her to yesterday's fears. After work, she arrived at Jonathan's office, not to revisit old sentiments, but to underscore her transformation. As she stepped into the sleek room, she felt the weight of her intentions settle on her shoulders like armor. There was no longer room for nostalgia. She was there to advocate for herself. "Emily," Jonathan greeted with an uncharacteristic air of concern. "I didn't expect to see you. What's going on?" The familiar cadence of his voice threatened to unravel her confidence, yet she steadied herself. "I need to talk about our past, Jonathan. It's time to address the hold you've had on me. I can't afford to be defined by you any longer." His lips parted, confusion flickering across his face. "Define myself by me? Doesn't sound like you're being truthful with yourself." "No, it's not," Emily responded firmly, grounding herself in the truth. "It's true that you'll always be a part of my life because of our bond, but I will no longer allow you to dictate what I can achieve or feel." She felt a tremor of power coursing through her. With each word, the brittle chains of insecurity shattered around her. Jonathan's facade of charm began to waver, revealing a hint of uncertainty as he processed her determination. "You think you've changed?" he countered, frustration weaving through his voice. "What makes you so sure?" "I've learned from every moment we shared," she declared confidently. "Every time you belittled me or questioned my worth, it became a lesson in strength. Today I stand empowered to choose a different path, one that embraces my capabilities and dreams." Jonathan scoffed, trying to regain footing in the conversation. But Emily's resolve only strengthened. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was a declaration of independence. "You warned me that I'd fail, but I've only succeeded in forging my own identity. With every art piece I create, every lesson I teach, I reclaim parts of myself that you tried to suppress. His expression flickered between disbelief and anger, but Emily pressed on, undeterred by his responses. "You can't control me anymore. I've found support in others, like Jack, who value me for who I am, not who I was when I was with you." The words hung in the space between them like a clarion call. With each spoken affirmation, Emily felt lighter, freer. She had transformed a relic of her past into a stepping stone toward her future. With this newfound clarity, she continued, "I wish you well on your journey, but know that I will be moving forward, happier in my own skin without your influence. I'm embracing my life, and I won't be looking back." Silence enveloped them for a moment, and amid that stillness, Emily's heart raced. Jonathan's eyes betrayed frustration, but also an admission of defeat as he processed her courage. This was not a reconciliation, but an ending, a chapter finally closed. "I never thought you'd push back like this," he muttered, though his tone carried less weight than before. "I just wanted to make sure you knew who was really in control." "I'm in control now, Jonathan," Emily said, warmth exuding from her newfound strength rather than anger. "A control built on confidence and self-acceptance. I won't ever forget the past, but I will no longer allow it to dictate my present." As she stepped out of his office, the cool air filled her lungs with a rush of exhilaration. She could feel the weight of chains breaking behind her. This was it. Emily had finally chosen herself. Returning home, she shared the news with Jack. "I confronted Jonathan," she relayed, excitement bubbling in her voice. "I stood my ground. I am reclaiming my narrative." Jack beamed with pride, and Emily felt her heart swell. "That's a huge step, Emily. You've demonstrated incredible growth. You faced your past and chose your future without hesitation," he said, his respect evident in his tone. As they continued their discussion, Emily felt herself solidify in her identity. She began to consider how her art could thrive outside of her previous constraints. Jack's encouragement facilitated further vision, creating a local exhibit to showcase not just her work, but her journey of transformation. Weeks passed, and with Jack's unwavering support, she poured herself into her art, crafting pieces that represented her journey with color and texture. Each brushstroke reflected her newfound resolve, and when the invitation for her first exhibit came together, it felt like a celebration of self, the culmination of hard-fought independence from Jonathan's shadow. On opening night, nerves danced like butterflies in her stomach. Yet, as she welcomed friends, family, and even some of her students, she felt a wave of validation wash over her. This was her space, one she had fought for and earned. Each painting hung on the wall told a story of resilience and self-empowerment, and there was Jack, standing proudly by her side, a symbol of how far she had come. "You did this, Emily," he said with sincerity as she surveyed her work. "You took every challenge, every doubt, and transformed it into something beautiful." Emily smiled, her heart brimming with pride and achievement. This moment was hers, emblematic of growth, courage, and the refusal to be boxed in by anyone else's narrative. She had accomplished what she set out to do, rising from rejection to artistic celebration. The path stretched ahead, a blank canvas awaiting her next strokes. For the first time, she felt ready to embrace whatever came next. She had conquered self-doubt. She had learned to define herself on her own terms, and she stood steadfast with Jack by her side. This was not merely an ending, it was the promise of new beginnings, a commitment to herself, her art, and the blossoming relationship that now flourished without the weight of her past. Now, dear viewer, the conclusion of Emily's journey resonates with triumphant power and relentless spirit. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire genuine change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because your engagement is what brings these transformative tales to life. Comment your reactions and theories about Emily's profound journey, and let's keep the conversation going. Your insights matter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion, because it's time to uplift those around us with stories of personal overcoming. Don't wait even one more second to share the light of this message. Be part of the movement that empowers individual transformation.